Fontaine Foxworth, and I'm one of the PMs on Firebase Analytics. Now, before we dive into the details of analytics today, I want to spend a moment and just reflect on apps and the experiences that they're contributing to our lives today. We all have those experiences where we download an app, we open it, and we fall in love immediately. It starts adding value to your life. You can't imagine life without it. For me, this app probably is Instagram, or on this trip, Google Translate. But we've also had those experiences where we download an app and we almost instantly regret it. We open it up, the user experience is really poor. Maybe the app crashes a lot. Or they're sending notifications in a one-size-fits-all way, and they don't even apply to me. And then these apps have the audacity to ask for a review on top of it. Now, as app developers, we want to make sure that our app is not that app. But we know that when you're an app developer, there are a bunch of challenges in your way. First of all, there are massive amounts of data. We know that on average, users are unlocking their phones 150 times a day. That's generating mind-boggling amounts of data. So you need to make sure that you have a tool that can handle that volume. Secondly, you need to make sure that not only can your tool handle that volume, but it allows you to actually understand what's happening with your users. You can't just be looking at the total aggregate numbers, but you want to be able to use it to spot trends, to slice and dice, and help you actually understand what's going on in your app. And then, of course, so many times when we're working as developers, we have distinct tools and they don't work well together. They're built by different companies, and you have these data silos that don't operate well together, and you're unable to truly act across your stack using your data. And this is why we built Firebase. Firebase was built to help you develop your apps, grow your user base, and earn money. But we know that this isn't simply a linear progression. It isn't just develop, grow, earn, and then you're done. You earn money, and then you go back and build new features. You find new channels to tap into different user sources, and perhaps you find new monetization streams. So we knew that we needed to build a product that could help enable each stage of this life cycle. And Firebase has a host of products, but at the core of Firebase is Firebase Analytics. It's the common data layer that's bringing it all together. It's the common language that all the products speak. Now, built by the team that built Google Analytics for apps, we were able to build upon years of understanding and working with app developers. So we built a tool that was truly apps first. And when we set out to design Firebase Analytics a while ago, there were a couple of governing principles that helped us navigate how to build and design the product. The first is that we knew it needed to be free and unlimited, so our app developers could get access to all of their data without compromise. No hit limits, no sampling. We also knew that we wanted it to be simple but powerful, so beginner analysts could use it and unlock a lot of powerful insights, but at the same time, sophisticated marketers and developers who needed more functionality and features would be able to do it with the same tool. And that's why we added a lot of automatic event reporting in Firebase, so that you can unlock insights immediately upon plugging in the SDK. And then finally, and perhaps most importantly, we knew it needed to be seamlessly integrated. We needed a source of truth for your data that was integrated across not just Firebase, but across Google. Because we heard you as app developers saying there were too many tools, too many accounts, even just working across Google, and they weren't working well together. And with Firebase, everything you can do on Android is just as easily available on iOS, because we know that successful app developers are building on both platforms, and we're committed to being cross-platform. Now, getting started with Firebase is as easy as 1, 2, 3. The first step is going into Firebase and registering your app, generating that app in our system. The second step is downloading the SDK, and you'll get a configuration file with it. And then the third step is a single line on iOS and a change to that configuration file on Android, and you're up and running with Firebase. Now, this is a one-time task that you do in order to take advantage of any of the Firebase features, but one of the great things is as soon as you do this task, you automatically get Firebase Analytics for free. Now, when we've talked to app developers, they often cite this as taking less than 15 minutes to actually go through this process. Now, I said Firebase Analytics is immediately available. Let's talk about what that actually means. Immediately when you plug in the Firebase SDK, you get a bunch of automatic event reporting. We're capturing over a dozen events simply by plugging in the SDK. Common lifecycle events like first open, or app update, or in-app purchase if you're using those. These are common lifecycle metrics that we've heard from developers are really powerful in helping getting a sense of how often their app is being used. But at the same time, we know that each business is different, and they have different needs. So of course, using our API in the SDK, you can capture any additional custom events that you'd like. And if you don't know where to start, in our help documentation, we have a series of suggested events for each different vertical. So if you're a retailer, or if you're a travel client, or a game, we have a list of events that helps you get up to speed. Where do I start? We make recommendations not just about what events to capture and how to structure and think about your business, but also the extra metadata that you should be sending with those events, the extra parameters, so you can help to get context and extra reporting for these sorts of events. Now, I'd like to look at this in the context of a real-world app. Here's an app called Transworld Endless Skater. It's available on both iOS and Android, and it's a skating game that allows users to skate their way to the longest runs to earn the highest scores. Now, in the game, the users can select from a couple of different professional skaters to take advantage of different tricks and skills. And also within the game, there's an in-game economy. So users can utilize this virtual currency to unlock new skills or even levels. So at this point, I'm actually going to hop over to a demo, and we'll get to review how you can actually see Firebase Analytics in the context of this real-world app. Great. All right, so here we're seeing our dashboard. And immediately available in the dashboard, I can see both my iOS and Android apps. If I toggle here, I'm going to focus on iOS for now. The first widget that I see here is my active users. So for this app, I can see it has 18,000 monthly active users, nearly 1,000 daily active users, and I don't even have to change the time frame. It's immediately giving me these key metrics for my app immediately upon plugging in the SDK. Now, this next widget over here, average revenue, helps me capture how much money is being spent in my app. I know this app monetizes off in-app purchases, so I can see, again, broken down monthly, weekly, and daily, my average revenue per user, or ARPU, and my average revenue per paying user, or ARPPU. You can see for this particular game, the monthly active paying users are particularly valuable. In fact, these monthly paying users are worth, on average, about $60 a month. Pretty powerful to start to understand the relative value of different types of users in your app. Now, moving down, the next widget I can see is First Open. First Open attribution. First Opens, you can think of those like installs. And this attribution section allows you to start to understand where your traffic is coming from. So, is it coming from ads? Is it coming from dynamic links or app invites? Potentially it came from app indexing. They clicked on it in Google search. Or perhaps it just came directly from somebody finding it in Google Play or the App Store and downloading it. You can start to understand where your marketing campaigns are performing well. Next, we have the retention cohort section, which allows you to see your drop-off curve week by week. So if you were to see a particular line, a particular week, had a slightly darker blue section, that would be an indicator that the users acquired in that week had stronger retention patterns and more likely to stick around. Maybe you ran a promotion that week or something of that nature that caused users to be more likely to actually continue to engage with your app. Next up, we have our user engagement card, where we're highlighting not just what they're doing, but how much time they're spending in your app. This is a particularly important metric when we're starting to think about engagement. Not just how much they're monetizing, but how much of their mind share do you actually have. So for this particular app, I can see on average, the daily engagement per user is around 10 minutes. So 10 minutes of my user's day is spent in the app. Next, the widget is in-app purchases. I highlighted that there's this in-game economy in Transworld Endless Skater. And available automatically without any additional coding is capturing the in-app purchase events on both iOS and Android. So the developer can see which line items were the most successful at actually causing purchases in the app. So in this particular app, you can purchase different bucks, different packages of bucks, and I can see the package of $6 was the most sold. It sold 19 and brought in about $2,000. So I can see a lot more granular information than just the overall revenue that I'm making in the app. Next up, I can see app version. App version becomes particularly powerful when you start to think about how quickly are new versions of my app actually being adopted. This is also important when you start to realize maybe you have a crash on a certain version of your app and you want to understand what percentage of users is it actually affecting. This widget can help you actually understand that. In the devices card, we have both model and OS version. Model could be useful for UX reasons. Maybe your UX designer wants to understand what are the most popular screen sizes so they can make sure that they're actually designing for that form factor. And then with OS version, let's say an older OS version is really expensive to maintain from a development perspective, and you want to understand whether it's actually worth all the time that you're putting into fixing those bugs. Well, coming into this OS version section, you can actually understand what percentage of users are on that old OS version and understand whether it's worth your investment to keep paying attention to that or consider deprecating that old version. Next, we have a location card showcasing where in the world your users are coming from. And a demographics card where we're infusing Google's data into your own data so you can see demographic breakdowns like male, female, or even age bracket. And then finally at the bottom, we're able to pull in our interest data, again generated by Google's data. In this particular example, you can see online video and online games are among the most popular interests for this particular group of users. I would say that's not that surprising considering this is a gaming app. Great. Couple more things to highlight about this particular experience. Everything that I just showed you is available immediately upon plugging in the SDK. So no additional logging was needed. It took about 15 minutes to set all of this up. This is when I say simple yet powerful. This is what I'm talking about. Certainly you can go on to log additional events that make sense for your business, and you'll unlock a lot more powerful reporting. But out of the box, you get a lot of rich insights about what's happening with your users. Also in Firebase Analytics, you can see period over period comparison of your data. So anywhere you see a little red or a little green indicator, it tells you in the previous period, were you up or down? So no longer are you operating in a vacuum, but you can actually get contextual data to understand the greater trends of what's happening in your app. And finally, with Firebase Analytics, you can slice and dice your data to create audiences or segments to delve deeper into your user behavior. Now, you unlock reporting on these audiences, but you can also target these audiences across the Firebase stack and across different products at Google. So it's not just about understanding and looking at data for data's sake, but actually unlocking the ability to act on the insights that you're uncovering. So let's head back into the deck and talk about some use cases for this. Now, certainly looking at the data within the Firebase console is exciting and powerful, and there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with it. But I also know that you're all developers, so you like having access to the raw data as well. You can export all of your data to BigQuery using our integration and have it immediately available there for any visualizations you'd like. Now, we've talked about how you measure your data and how you can start to understand what's happening in your app. When I talk to a lot of app developers when we are setting out to design and build Firebase Analytics, I would always ask them, what analytics tools are you using in your app? And always they would rattle off 3 or 4 different types of analytics packages that they were using in their app, all for different purposes. Maybe they were using something for push notification analytics, something else for crash reporting, something else for in-app behavioral analytics, and then also another tool to track their actual marketing performance and conversion tracking. And none of these systems were talking to each other, all being managed by different companies, different tools. No pipes going between these data silos. So when we were designing Firebase Analytics, we realized that we wanted to bring together these different types of analytics into a single tool. In particular, we wanted to enable you to be able to understand what's happening with your users, and then compare that with your marketing performance, so you can see which channels are the most effective at driving high-value users. So you're able to turn those user insights into actual action. And that's why we built Firebase Analytics to be a growth engine for your app. Now, when I say growth engine, a key notion that I want to introduce is the notion of conversions. Conversions in Firebase Analytics are your most important business drivers. These are the things that you're optimizing your app around. So first open, you can think of these like installs or in-app purchase. These are obviously conversions. So we'll indicate those for you automatically. But we know that each business is different, and so we also allow the opportunity for you to mark any of the events that you're sending Firebase Analytics to be conversions. Now, when you mark something as a conversion, you can come into the events section of Firebase Analytics, and there's a toggle on the right-hand side where you can select to mark something as a conversion. Now, by marking something as a conversion, you unlock functionality on it. For example, you unlock the ability to do conversion tracking with AdWords, or to do cross-channel attribution on that particular conversion. So in the example of Trans World Endless Skater, maybe the event spend virtual currency will be a conversion for me, because I'm going to try to drive that behavior and type of engagement in my app. And if I mark that as a conversion, that indicates that I think it's an important business driver, and I'll be able to see which channels are driving the most of this particular conversion. Now, when I mark it as a conversion, it'll show up in the attribution section of Firebase Analytics. And I can click on each one and receive a report for each individual conversion, so I can see the breakdown there. Now, later today, we've got a session we'll go into attribution for ads purposes a little bit more deeply, so I'm not going to cover that now. But one thing I do want to highlight is our ability to do lifetime value reporting in Firebase Analytics. We saw this on the dashboard, but we're really trying to introduce this notion of no longer are we just driving installs, we want to be driving valuable users. So you're investing in the right places. And by introducing this lifetime value report, you can actually see channel by channel which sources are driving those most valuable users. Now, before we actually move on towards the end, there were a couple of different types of growth that I wanted to highlight. Specifically organic growth. So not talking advertising, but using other features within Firebase to drive new users to your app. The first type of growth is notifications. With Firebase notifications, again, it's free and unlimited, similar to analytics, and it works just as powerfully on iOS as it does on Android. Think about it. You can engage in a conversation directly with your users. That's incredibly powerful. But as a wise man once said, with great power comes great responsibility. So we need to make sure we're being thoughtful about how we're actually sending notifications to our users. We've all had examples of apps that send us notifications way too frequently, way too many times a day. It gets obnoxious. And then there are the other apps that are sending one-size-fits-all messaging that doesn't apply to me as a user. So when we're sending notifications to our users, it's important that we strike the right balance between frequency and relevance. With Firebase notification, we give you the opportunity to send hyper-relevant messages to your users. First, you can use Firebase Analytics to construct an audience of your users. Figure out the exact group that you want to target. Secondly, you go into notifications and you craft the right message that makes sense in that context. And then finally, by combining these, you can send certain messages to certain user groups. Now, going back to this skating game, let's talk about a potential example. I mentioned that spend virtual currency is a conversion that I'm trying to drive. I think I can do this with notifications. So one of the ways that people can spend their virtual currency inside the app is to unlock content like new levels. So if I'm introducing a new level in the app, then I can send a push notification to a group of users, encouraging them to actually unlock that new level. So first, I construct my audience. And for this particular group of users, I think I would target the users who have historically spent virtual currency to unlock levels. So that's my target users. And then secondly, I would craft my message. Maybe unlock the newest level, come play now. And then by combining these together, I can schedule my message to encourage my users to actually play and unlock this newest level. But not only is this integration about targeting, we also add a lot of reporting as well. So you'll be able to see a funnel of users who first got sent the notification, who opened the notification, and then you can see how many conversions were actually driven by that notification. So how effective was that notification at driving the users to spend the currency in the game? One more type of growth tool that I want to highlight is our app invites feature. Skyscanner was one of our earliest users of Firebase Analytics, and they paired it with Firebase App Invites to actually grow their user base in an organic fashion. They decided to target their most valuable users, which in this context was the users who had created a booking via Skyscanner, a global travel search company, in the past. So they found these users with an audience in Firebase Analytics, identified them as a target, and then encouraged them to share the app via SMS and email. And this is what it looked like when actually applied. They showed these users the opportunity to write a review, and if the users wrote a positive review, they also gave them the opportunity to share the app. Those users shared the app with their friends and family, and when those friends and family then went on to download the app, not only did they download the app, but they were deep linked into a specific section of the app that corresponded with the initial invitation. So it was really able to tie the user experience together with the initial invitation. In the same way, we're able to tie the experience together from the developer's perspective and unlock rich reporting to actually show you which ones of the dynamic links and app invites were most successful at driving new installs. And Skyscanners saw incredible results, seeing hundreds of personalized invites and strong retention and adoption from those users coming in from this channel. So before I leave, I want to leave you with a couple of pearls of wisdom when it comes to Firebase Analytics. First, it's free and unlimited, so you can get all of your data without compromise. It's simple, yet powerful, so you can do a lot of stuff immediately upon plugging in the SDK. Perhaps most importantly, it's well integrated across the Firebase platform, so no longer are you operating in data silos. And finally, what we're doing with Firebase and Firebase Analytics is to make your lives as developers easier, so you can develop your app, grow your user base, and earn money, so that you can do less of the things that you've had to do, like managing your data silos, and more of the things that you love doing, like building an awesome app. Thank you.